All right, let's talk about Samsung. They're making a massive bet on AI, and we're going to break it all down using their latest annual report and some really sharp analysis from HDIN Research.
So, you know how everyone's talking about the AI gold rush, right? Well, in this race, are giants like Samsung selling the shovels, the essential gear, or are they actually falling behind? That's the big question we're tackling today.
Okay, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with their 2025 scorecard, then dive into the nitty-gritty of the AI chip battle. We'll look at the cash they're throwing at the problem and wrap up with the big question: what does the year ahead look like? The bull versus the bear case.
All right, first up, let's get the lay of the land. We need to look at the big numbers from 2025.
So get this, Samsung pulled in almost $250 billion in revenue. That's a huge number, and it's up nearly 11% from the year before. So, top-line growth, looking pretty solid.
But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just that they sold more stuff. Their operating profit, it exploded. We're talking a 33% jump. That tells you they were making way more money on everything they sold. So, where did all that cash come from?
And here's your answer. It all comes down to one division, DS, or Device Solutions. That's their semiconductor business. It was the absolute powerhouse, driving a whopping 57% of all operating profits. I mean, that just dwarfs everything else, even their phones and TVs that everyone knows.
And right there, that's the heart of the story. You see, being so dependent on semiconductors is both their biggest strength and their biggest weakness. It puts them smack in the middle of this absolutely brutal fight for the future of AI. Okay, so let's zoom in on that AI battleground. HDIN Research really breaks this down into two key fronts, where Samsung is fighting for its life.
First up is something called HBM, or high bandwidth memory. The easiest way to think about this is it's like the super fast premium fuel that AI models need to learn and get smarter. And in this space, Samsung is going head-to-head with its biggest rival, SK Hynix.
And this chart, it shows you the problem perfectly. I mean, Samsung is still a giant in memory, no doubt. But look at their overall DRAM market share. It dropped from over 41% down to 34% in a single year. Why? A big reason is that competitors captured key wins in that high-value HBM segment. All right, the second front in this war is the foundry business. Foundries are these incredibly advanced factories that actually build the brains of AI. We're talking the chips designed by companies like NVIDIA or Apple. And here, Samsung's rival is the undisputed king of the hill, TSMC.
So how do you take on a giant like TSMC? Well, Samsung's not just trying to play catch-up. They're attempting something incredibly bold. They're trying to leapfrog them entirely by betting the whole farm on a brand new technology.
So what is this crazy new tech? It's called GAA, which stands for Gate All Around. Look, in simple terms, it's a total redesign of the transistor, the tiny on-off switch that's the basic building block of every chip. This new 3D design gives them way more control over electricity, and that is absolutely critical if you want to build the next generation of tiny, super powerful, and power-efficient chips for AI.
So you've got this intense pressure on two fronts, right? Memory and manufacturing. So how is Samsung going to fight back? Well, as HDIN Research points out, they're leaning on their biggest advantage, a massive pile of cash.
And when I say massive, I mean it. The company is sitting on a $70 billion war chest of pure cash. That's not just a nice safety net, it's a strategic weapon. It gives them the firepower to outspend and outinvest just about anyone.
And believe me, they are using that weapon. Just look at this breakdown. In 2025, over 90% of all the money they spent on new factories and equipment was poured directly into one place, their semiconductor division. Everything else was just a footnote.
So let's be crystal clear about what's happening here. This isn't just a small shift in strategy, this is Samsung going all in. They are using all that financial muscle for one big push, to nail the next generation of HBM memory, perfect this cutting-edge 2nm GA process, and try to blow past the competition in one go.
Okay, so when you make a bet that big, a high-risk, high-reward bet, it can go one of two ways. So let's look at the two possible futures for Samsung, what HDIN Research calls the bull and the bear case.
It's pretty simple, really. On one side, you've got the argument for why this could be a huge historic win, and on the other, why it could be a really, really costly failure.
Okay,
Let's really dig into this, because the whole story is on this one slide. Let's start with the bull case, the reasons to be optimistic. The big one is that technological leapfrog. If they can nail their new 2-nanometer GAA process in HBM4 memory, it could totally reset the market. And with that $70 billion war chest and tons of cash coming in, they can definitely afford to see this fight through. But then there's the bear case. The biggest worry? Simple execution. This new chip tech is incredibly difficult to produce at scale with good quality. Plus, their competitors, TSMC and SK Hynix, are absolute titans. They're not just going to roll over. And remember, Samsung has already lost ground in the current AI memory market, so they're playing from behind.
And all of this brings us to the core takeaway from the HDIN Research analysis. The next year, 2026, isn't just another year. It's the moment of truth. It's when we're going to find out if this massive technology breakthrough gamble actually works.
And that leaves us with this final, massive, multi-billion-dollar question. Samsung clearly has the money, they've got the plan, and they want to own the hardware that powers AI. But you know, in the fastest-moving industry on the planet, a great plan is only half the story. It all comes down to execution. Will this be a historic win for them, or a costly misstep? The market is about to give us the answer.